All right, welcome back to the YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be going through Ollie George's program. Now, it's something I want to do with you guys. I want it to be a little bit more raw. That's why we're just setting up the camera. We're in the new office here at the new facility, and just going to literally talk to you about my programming strategies. I want to get myself as a coach out there a little bit more with how I program, why I program, the reasoning behind picking certain exercises, rep ranges, frequencies, and why this might be beneficial to someone out there who is looking for a coach. So obviously, Ollie George is one of my athletes who is an absolute weapon of an athlete. He started with me literally as just a young kid coming out of the gym, doing a bit of powerlifting. His numbers now have exploded, and pretty excited for him to compete at Junior Nationals next weekend. When this video comes out, it might have already happened, but next weekend, 13th to the 15th of August. And we're set to hit some really, really big numbers. So on the screen here, to give you guys a little bit of a understanding before we dive into the actual programming stuff, at the bottom here, we've got the Junior Nats 2021 tab. This is the current training block that he's in the build up to Junior Nats. We've got these deload blocks, which each run for 1 week. And then here we've got the second block out from comp, which I've put there 15 weeks out from his competition. And then block 6, which would be the third block away from Junior Nationals. So in between each block, we ran a 1 week deload. Now, obviously the deload is to let fatigue subside. I have 2 ways of structuring my deloads. I either keep them quite specific if I want the person to get some skill exposure to the movements, because we know that powerlifting, squat, bench press, and deadlift is still a skill. So if I want them to keep the movement, the pattern up, and get some practice in during the deload while letting fatigue subside, I'll keep it relatively specific, which I have done in this case with Ollie. I wanted him to get some easy singles in at 5 to 6 with some nice easy RPE 5 to 6, so nice and easy with some back off percentages at 75%. That's an example there of low bar squats. In other instances, I will give someone a deload where it's completely non-specific, give them a break, make it a little bit more metabolically taxing, and just give them a complete different stimulus to hopefully resensitize them to that strength stimulus when we come back into week 1 of the training block. So we'll start here at block 6 with Ollie, and what happened here, and you'll see with SSB squat to box, we actually had a hip injury. Ollie's squats were going through the roof. One day his hip was quite sore, and it progressed throughout the week to the point where I was like, all right, we need to get Dan, the in-house physio, to run an assessment. And he did, and he wanted him to take a break from low bar squatting and find a squat variation that Ollie could do without pissing off the hip. And we had to play around with a few variations, and we found that SSB set to a box to manage depth was the best option. So we were allowed to perform squats, even though not specifically the low bar back squat. We were allowed to perform SSB squat to box at 4x10. RPE 6 to 7, keeping the intensity somewhat low, not really pushing RPE 8s, 9s, and 10s. However, what this was a good opportunity for Ollie to really push his comp bench press and sumo deadlift. And in this block, we saw massive gains in his sumo deadlift, where he got up to a 290 triple on his sumo and benched a 140 double, which were both massive PRs. Now, what I did with Ollie was the fact that he was quite upset about not being able to squat, and which is 100% normal. Most people, when they do get injured, they feel a little bit deflated and flat, but I tried to shift his focus from not being able to squat to what he could do. And what he could do was sumo and bench. And in that period, in this block, we hit 2 massive PRs in both those lifts, which set us up really well for the next 2 blocks heading into Junior Nationals. So big piece of advice for people out there is, if you are feeling a bit deflated with an injury, find what movements you can do and absolutely smash them. Use that. If you'll be doing a little less volume, because obviously you can't squat, or you can't squat at the intensity that you normally do. So you'll have a little bit more recovery, which means you can push your deadlifts a bit more or push your bench a bit more, and really use that time to capitalize on that, which is exactly what we did with Ollie in this training block. So as we can see here, comp bench press and sumo deadlift kept the rep ranges fairly strength specific with a top triple and back off sets of 5, and then for bench press top double with back off sets of 5. So we progressed this block. We did low squat, SSB squat to box, and then we eventually were able to bring back in low bar back squats as per Dan's request. So working with Dan was really useful and helpful because we were able to have 2 sets of eyes on Ollie's rehab and make sure that we got him back fit and firing, which we have now 2 months later. So in order to, what people neglect sometimes with training blocks is not having, being able to think ahead and understand where the next block is going. Now I know, working backwards from Ollie's comp date, that we had 2 blocks of training. So this meant we need to get somewhat specific with our rep ranges, and I did that with his low bar back squats. I brought them in at 4 reps for a top set with back off sets of 6. As you'll see, kept the intensities relatively low because Dan wanted them low so that we could gradually expose Ollie to low bar back squats again and gradually expose his hip to those to that movement again. And back off percentages were 70%, which is relatively low. Usually I'll put those a bit higher. As we can see with the sumo deadlifts, we've progressed from top triples into top doubles and back off sets of 5 in the previous block to back off sets of 4. So this is what's known as phase potentiation, understanding that the previous dose is going to affect the current dose, or what you're doing in this current block is going to affect the next block. So heading into a block where you're planning to go into a competition and peak, you probably shouldn't be doing sets of 12 or 15. 12 and 15, really great for building muscle and hypertrophy, building work capacity. However, for a strength-specific phase and heading into a peak, probably not ideal. So we want to keep that in mind, which I did here with Ollie's sumo deadlift, taking what we did in the last block, progressing the rep ranges into the next block. So did the exact same for bench press, and again we had a really, really productive training block. We hit sumo deadlift 300 kilogram double and bench press 145 for 3. Again, PRs in both the lifts. Squats, we ended up, if we have a look here, I did prescribe the loads because I wanted him to be a little bit more mindful coming back from an injury, that not to overshoot, and I wanted to keep him sort of tamed and reined in. So we ended up finishing for 230 times 4, which for Ollie is actually quite comfortable. So if you followed any of our content before, you've probably seen that we push RPE massively, and we will continue to do so. I do believe that it is one of it's the preferred way of coaching someone because it does allow for those fluctuations in day-to-day life that we do see from people. Nothing in life is linear. However, in some instances, I do like to use prescribed loads. And this was one of the cases. We have Ollie, a young guy. The goal is to get him to junior nationals squatting the junior record, which is his goal, which he is set to do. So the goal of this block, 2 blocks out, is to prepare him for those heavier intensities to come in the comp block. So I prescribed him a prescribed load. I gave him a prescribed load so that he could just gradually expose his hip to those higher intensities without overshooting it, which in some instances, working with Ollie in the past, and he'll understand me saying this, he does sometimes like to nudge it and overshoot, which I'm okay with when he is 100% fit and healthy. In this instance, I wanted him to be a little bit more tamed in and just make sure we got the training volume in, we got the stimulus there, got the hip feeling good and the hip was recovering, and then we could progress into the next block, which we have done. So that's in an instance where I will use prescribed loads, and I will always back in any training tool if you can justify why you're using the training tool. We do like to use RPE as our preferred training or programming strategy. However, it is not the only tool in the tool belt, and when you need to use the right tool, make sure that you pull it out and use it. So following on, we can see that we have low bar back squats in at a 2 times frequency here on day 3. Again, RPEs are really low. We have a 5 to 6 RPE for 1 set, and then a D set. A D set means a 5% load drop. So we're hitting a really easy set, followed by a 5% load drop and repeating that. Again, this is just 3 sets to gradually expose the hip to some training or to some squatting volume so that we can progress into heavier and harder sets later on. Again, in conjunction with Dan, this was the decision that we made. We have Ollie benching 3 days a week. 3 days a week seems to be a sweet spot where he is performing, we're getting personal records and recovering. And again, when it comes to programming, the big 2 things are you performing and are you getting better, and are you recovering? It'd be one thing to be performing and getting better, but you're not recovering and you're feeling beat up and like trash. So you need to balance those 2 things. If you're hitting a sweet spot and it's working, just keep doing what you're doing. And that's my philosophy as a coach. If it's working, keep running with it. So now we'll go into the competition block, Junior Nats 2021, and we'll see what this looks like. So we'll look at day 1. Again, kept the squat on day 1 because that has what's worked well for us in the past. And we've brought in top singles with back off sets of 4. I cut one of the back off sets off to allow for intensity, reduced volume, a little bit more recovery so that we can push intensity. Again, Dan's orders, because this was early on, were to just be cautious with the hip and be conservative and take it on a week by week basis. And this is again why we prefer to use RPE, because it allows us to do that rather than having a set fixed plan and then it chops and changes anyway. So we use RPE to allow for this, and we'll see that the intensities are ramping. First 2 weeks are 6 to 7, and then they go to 7 to 8, 7 to 8. In the last week, we hit the opener in the taper. And then day 2, we move on to bench press, and we do the same thing as the squats, top single with back off sets of 4. Got an extra set in there because bench press is a little less stressful and can handle a little bit more volume. For his secondary squat and deadlift day, we've been doing cluster singles, which is just skill development at higher intensity. So we've got 8 singles where we run them on a ramping RPE, first set at RPE 5, second set at RPE 6, third set at RPE 7, followed by deload sets and repeat. In this instance, I've set the deload sets at 7.5% load drop. So he gets 8 quality singles to really practice his technical execution for both sumo deadlift on day 2 and low bar back squat on day 3. And then his main sumo day, we're running the exact same as squat and bench. Top singles with 4x4 as the back off with the percentages set at 78%. So we can see that as a whole, the 3 blocks have led into each other quite well. I have had thought of what is working well in this current block, but also keeping in mind of what is going to lead well into the next block. And we can see right now, Ollie is killing it. He's hit PRs, training PRs this week. He's hit training PRs in every block leading up to Junior Nationals, so he is going to put together a super performance. And I might actually do a comp review on how he went after this video comes out, and we can talk about his competition and how it played out, and some of how we made his comp plan off this video. I think that will work really well into one another. So again, these videos are a bit more casual. Just want to keep it really raw and to be like, this is what I'm doing. And when I'm programming, this is kind of the thoughts that are going through my head. And this is why I think it's so beneficial to have a coach. This is also why I still have a coach, and I've been working with Bryce Krawczyk for 4 years now. And it's why if you are a young aspiring powerlifter, you want to compete in your first competition, or maybe have done 1 or 2 comps but have done them on your own and are looking for some guidance, they're exactly the kind of people that I love to work with. So if you are keen, definitely shoot me a message, leave a comment below, come check out our new facility. We're always down here, and we'd love to have a chat and get you on board and become part of the culture, and you can be the next Ollie George. And so if you made it to the end of this video too, I really appreciate you watching it all the way through. Give the video a thumbs up, leave a comment below. But if you did like it, just let us know. Leave a comment below. Leave some ideas that you'd like us to do more of this kind of content, this really raw content of how we program and how we choose exercises and all that stuff, because we'd love to keep making the content for you guys that you actually want to watch. And as always, happy lifting. Stop that.